Okay, so I was in group 4. This is from our first presentation, which was chapter 8 over self-help groups. We talked about the definition and characteristics of self-help groups, the classification, the benefits of self-help groups, linkage. My part was starting a self-help group, and then we also talked about online self-help groups. So, just going to get right into it. Starting a self-help group is similar to starting any other group. If there's a national organization, you have to contact the national organization and get material on the guidelines for starting a local chapter. You get this information if there's already a local chapter. You find all that out on the American Self-Help Group Clearinghouse, which we learned about in class. That's a web-based database for 1,100 national and international self-help groups. So it just, you can get on there and search, and it tells you if there's any in the area and what all there are in the country. If there's not a national organization, then you just start from scratch. So if you want to do that, you have to answer these questions that I've written here on the board. The first is, what are the goals of the group? So that's just what problems are you addressing, what are you trying to help people do? The next is, what kinds of services should be provided to meet these goals? So it's just what extra help do we need? What outside sources do we need? Other resources? Who do we need to be in relation with? What other groups? Third is, what are the criteria for membership? So just what are the requirements? You can do a group based on anything, on age, gender, race, social status, obviously any problem that they're facing. So just any kind of requirement. Fourth is, what are the costs? So basically, mostly just, will there be a membership fee? You can really come up with anything else, but that's generally what it is. 5 is, where will the group meet? Generally, it's best to meet at some kind of public place, like an agency or a church, a business. A lot of groups have tried to meet in people's houses. They say that usually if you meet in one person's house, the person will eventually get tired of the responsibility. If you try to switch off on people's houses, it can get confusing. People won't know how to get to the place they're going, they'll forget where it is, and that person will drop out eventually. So it's best to meet somewhere public and in the same place every time. Six is, how will members be contacted? An example I read was about Mended Hearts, which we learned about that too. They said sometimes if they're wanting to start a group for heart surgery patients, they could contact the surgeons. You could see if they want to have a local chapter at the hospital, and you could ask the surgeons to ask the patients that they work with if they'd like to be in the group. That's a good way to get information out. You can also use flyers, ads in newspapers, TV, radio, churches. You can even go door to door just to get information out. So it's just whichever way you prefer. 7 is, what are the procedures for joining and leaving the group? So that's self-explanatory. What does a person have to do to become a part of your group, and is there anything special they need to do to leave? And 8 is, what kind of organizational structure should the group have, which we've talked about that in class. There are lots of different ways you can organize the leadership and the members in the group. It's important to know that these questions should not be answered by just the professional. Self-help groups tend to work best when it's a group of people have a problem, they're concerned and motivated, and they just come together and figure out how they want to answer all these questions. Instead of just saying, we need to start a group and we're going to plan it out very carefully. It's best if you just have a problem and you come together and answer the questions. There's a quote in our book by Lieberman and Borman when they talked about starting a self-help group. It says, there's an early zigzag process of groping, trying out various approaches, dropping some and developing new ones. Changes occur on a number of fronts: organizational size, organizational structure, program focus, nature of membership, nature of leadership, articulation with professionals and agencies, and sources of financial support. I thought this quote was important because it shows how dynamic all the answers to these questions can be, and just how dynamic starting a group can be. And it's just good for anyone who wants to help out in a group to know this, so you can know that if changes happen, it's not a bad thing, that it's normal. Most groups start out that way, so that's kind of some encouragement if you're facing that kind of problem with change on your own. It's just something good to know, and that's it.